right?
Yes.
So it's not like you can read it from.
Oh, we're actually
Live.
streaming now.
Live
Oh,
now.
fantastic.
Good.
Thank you, Kyle. That's okay. We're just killing time. We don't have viewers yet, but maybe one person. I'll bet Harwan's there. Hi, Harwan. So we're just about a minute or two away from starting the live show. So this beautiful bouquet of flowers sitting in front of us, we'll talk about it a little bit later. Hopefully we'll remember to on the show. But this was the centerpiece at the All-Star event for the Ray Center and Character Counts at the big event on Saturday night.
It's an all-star evening, and it was just amazing. Just the messaging, not only about the work of the Ray Center, but Ashton as well. And we have a wonderful guest today that's going to share more about that event.
And it was so exciting to see it so well attended, especially since there was another important event going on in Des Moines on the same night. And that this community is just really reaching out and doing great work, and that's just so uplifting to see when we're at a time in history where it seems like there's a lot of criticism and incivility, actually the subject of our show. And are we getting our sign to begin? Okay. Good morning. I'm Rowena Crosby.
And I'm Deborah Renner, and we're your co-hosts for this show. Thank you so much for joining us for the next 17 minutes for your IT show. No, we're not talking information technology. We're talking your invisible toolbox. This is the show where we're going to examine the invisible tools that are essential for working effectively with others.
And we thank those of you who are rejoining us this week for the live broadcast and welcome our new viewers. And we thank you for your feedback. You'll notice a little technological improvement. We're now using our surfaces as notes instead of that noisy paper that some of you are picking up the sounds of and viewing it. Last week we challenged those of you who watched to come up with 3 seemingly small things that you could do over time repeatedly that would add up to making a big difference. How'd that work out for you?
We also examined the tool of getting the facts before acting on a decision or making a judgment on something, and this takes constant practice. But if we can train ourselves to do it, we can actually save ourselves a lot of trouble.
And today we're going to focus on a topic that takes a lot of practice to demonstrate at work, and that is civility. And civility is really a hot topic these days. And it can be a little bit like our health. We don't fully appreciate it until it's challenged. And then you recognize how important it is to have and how difficult it is to be without.
That's a great analogy. You know, in 2014, 1 in 4 millennials were cited to believe that civility would actually increase in the next few years. We're right in the midst of 2017, and we have to ask ourselves, has it?
Oh, has it? And that's a hopeful generation. That same study revealed a deficit was noted by members of every generation, and that deficit in civility is in the 90th percentile.
So civility is a value. We work it into our mission statements for our organizations, but is it really practiced in the workplace?
And if it isn't, it makes for a very challenging work environment. Today we're going to examine what a challenging work environment looks like and feels like. We're going to look at several civility studies and some research results. And that's before we introduce our invisible tool of the week. And then we're going to use some of the research to play our game, 2 truths and a lie.
Now, wait a second. 2 truths and a lie. Is that ethical?
on a week of civility? Yes, it is, because we are going to disclose which one's the lie.
That's good, because we have a very special guest with us today for our interview, and he works to ensure that civility and ethics operates from children to adults. Scott Raecker, Executive Director of the Robert D. and Billie Ray Center at Drake University, is our special guest, and we can't wait for that interview. So let's get started.
So civility in the workplace takes many forms. It can be as simple as making sure everybody's ideas are valued and respected in a meeting, or creating a safe, supportive environment. Interestingly and unfortunately, incivility is a little easier to spot. That can be somebody bullying a coworker or making fun of a colleague, or the person who takes credit for the achievement of others. And that can create a culture of mistrust and fear.
It's also rooted in communication. Dr. Mark Gorkin is known as the stress doctor, and he's isolated 3 signs of a dysfunctional work environment. The first is if there is an aggressive or condescending communication pattern in that environment. The second is if there's communication that sets up a subordinate superior atmosphere.
What does that sound like?
It sounds like when people say things like, you don't get paid to think.
Ooh, that is condescending.
Exactly. And the third is if there's communication evident that is defensive in attitude.
So if it's dismissive in tone or conveys little interest in the other person.
Exactly.
Well, philosopher William James noted that the deepest craving in human nature is the need to feel appreciated. And it's clear to see how incivility can really challenge that need to feel appreciated and valued.
Well, that's a truth. Now let's go to our section on Two Truths and a Lie. We're going to examine some other facets of workplace civility.
The Baltimore Workplace Study was an impactful study analyzing the importance of civility in the workplace. Some of the findings in that study we're going to use in our game today, Two Truths and a Lie.
So I'm going to say 3 statements, and then I want you to decide which one of those is a lie. Statement number 1, and these were all reflected in that study. It's a sign of incivility to take a coworker's food from the refrigerator. Statement number 2, it's a sign of incivility to ignore a coworker. And statement number 3, it's a sign of incivility to not do your part on a team project. Which one of those do you think was a lie? Well, if you said number 2, you are right. Actually, the study didn't find that ignoring a coworker was a sign of incivility, and maybe that was because there are situations where it would be worse if we confronted them incorrectly. That could be the rationale around that.
But taking their food from the fridge and not pulling your weight on the team.
Yes, both important. So you don't want to take anybody's yogurt today. You want to be respectful of other people's things. What about our second one, Ro?
Our second one, I'll read you these 3 statements. You decide which one's the lie. Number 1, women bully as frequently as men. Number 2, women are the targets of bullying 75% of the time. And number 3, bullies in the workplace are generally transferred or terminated following the incident most of the time. So which one do you think is the lie? If you guess number 3 is the lie, you're right. Bullies are transferred or terminated only 7% of the time, and that's why it's so important we look at our invisible tool of the week. The Baltimore Workplace Civility Study also identified the following as violent behaviors in the workplace: yelling at a coworker, firing someone in the heat of an argument, or criticizing a colleague in public.
Those are all examples of verbal criticism and rooted in communication. We can use an effective communication tool in those critical conversations to make sure that we don't become one of those statistics.
And that's good because the statistics are alarming. Here's some examples. 80% of people lose work time worrying about incivility in the workplace. 80%. 66 had declines in performance, and 25% took their frustration out on a customer. Those are high costs.
High costs. Well, the invisible tool of the week will address those costs and hopefully mitigate and prevent those costs, and it is to listen actively. This means we don't react to criticism, but we effectively address it. So let's say someone was criticizing you because you were late for something and it was bothersome to them. Instead of having a counterpoint, you would listen to their point and then say a common ground statement such as, being on time, that's important to both of us. And then you could simply ask an open-ended question to get more of their perspective before you give your counterpoint or the reasons why, and just really navigate that conversation effectively rather than defending.
What a much more productive way to handle criticism.
Absolutely.
Let's now take a look at our social media posts of the week.
Well, those of you that follow us on social media know that we post useful content, relevant topics around the interpersonal skills several times every day. We're going to highlight a couple of those posts right now. First, you're going to find a link today on all of our platforms to a Forbes article. The title is The Strong Case for Civility in Management, and it's by Victor Lipman. And it's going to cite some authors Ro's going to talk about in a moment who have written a lot about civility. But what this article focuses on is how incivility can hijack our workplace focus. That's a huge cost in organizations. Please look for that on all our social platforms today.
And our second featured post for the week is a Harvard Business Review article by authors Pearson and Porath. And it talks about the price of incivility in the workplace, and it examines what leaders can do to create a more civil workplace. Watch on Thursday for links to all of that on the social media platforms. And now we're so excited to move into the portion of the program that we call Ask the Expert.
And we're thrilled to have with us today Scott Raecker. Scott, welcome.
Good morning,
Thank you,
Scott.
Marina.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Morning.
It's an honor to be with you and your viewers.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here. Scott is the Executive Director of the Robert D. and Billie Ray Center at Drake University and is in charge of the Character Counts program. We can't think of a more perfect guest to have with us today.
Oh, thank you.
And how timely. We just really want to congratulate you on that fabulous event on Saturday night. It was a great success. Before we do our interview, could you share with our viewers a little about the event and the person that was honored?
Thanks, Rowena. Yes, the All-Star Evening to benefit the Ray Center and Character Counts took place last Saturday. And at that event, we give our most prestigious recognition, which is the Robert D. Ray Pillar of Character Award, honoring Governor Ray's lifelong commitment to civility and character and doing good things for others. And our work is really on Governor Ray's vision of enhancing civility through character and ethical leadership. And we listed great individuals have won this recognition, and on Saturday we recognized Ashton Kutcher, great humanitarian. Most people know him for his acting and his production work, but he's really a brilliant entrepreneur mind, and he's a tremendous philanthropist working on some great causes to impact the world and back here in Iowa. And he had a very strong message on Saturday night for all of us that were there, which was really, our character is shaped in many ways, but one of those is through our failures and through the things that we've done wrong and learn from and grow from. And it was a very powerful message for all of us.
That gives us all hope that we can continue to build our character.
Exactly, and it was all relationship based too, which is where we go with civility, right? It's the ability of ourselves to work, and what are the strategies and tools, just as you're bringing to the viewers, to help us do that.
It was an amazing event and a speech that he gave that you walked away with just continuing to think about and to act upon. Well, Scott, as the director of the center and of Character Counts, can you talk us through a little bit of the relationship of those two entities and what they provide?
So the Robert D. and Billie Ray Center at Drake University is really focused on a mission to enhance civility and develop ethical leaders across the globe. And we work from early childhood to the corporate and community environment. Our founding is rooted in the 6 pillars of Character Counts: trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. And in and of themselves, if you think about those, if you put those in action, they're tools in your own toolbox.
Absolutely. And you said Character Count started in Iowa.
Yes, so we started the Character Counts initiative here in Iowa in 1997, partnered with the Josephson Institute nationally, who we continue to partner with on leadership, ethical leadership in business and community. And we started with one 5th grade classroom in 1997. We've mobilized the entire state in Iowa, and now as an example, if you want to use Character Counts for early childhood resources anywhere in the country or the globe, you come to Iowa for that resource. We just sent 57 early childhood kids to Buffalo, New York last week.
Oh my goodness,
That's awesome.
That's amazing. So the Josephson Institute of Ethics, tell us a little bit about the relationship of ethical leadership to civility.
Well, ethical leadership is a driver to civility. I look at it as means to ends. Ethical leadership, if you think about it, leadership, inspiration to others to guide, direct, and or follow. Anybody that inspires anyone is leading, and you can lead in positive or negative ways. And when you look at ethical, it's core value related. So when you even start talking about as your tool of active listening, it's rooted in the core values, right? Respectfully listening to people. So ethical leadership is really where that combination of where we bring the synergy of our core ethical values into our leadership. And when you think of the research around the ethical values are both performance character and moral character competencies. Our moral character is our best self, our relationship issues. Our performance character is our best work. So even the examples you gave in 2 Truths and a Lie dealt with both best work and best selves. So enhancing those really enhances our ethical leadership.
Wow, Scott is involved you devote your time to so many volunteer organizations, and as a person who has done that, and also from the center, what do you see as the most critical part of civility, or the most critical need?
Well, that's a great question, Deborah, and I really appreciate you asking. I think the most important thing that we can do right now is to reflect internally. What can I do to create a more civil society, a more civil world? It's too easy for us to point to others, whether it be at the national or international level, and say what they're doing wrong. And civility really is about the type of strategies you're talking about, the tools you're talking about to impact exact situations. So what I would really encourage people on civility is to think about, what can I do today? Who can I reach out to that I might not have thought to reach out to today? How can I approach this situation with a more positive engagement and a mindset of resolution? And civility certainly deals with manners, and that's so critically important, but it also deals with our ability to disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that's another component of civility that I would encourage people to think about personally, is when I disagree with someone, it doesn't mean I need to damage or harm that relationship.
Right. But I also don't have to play nice. There's ways to
Right.
have those productive
Right.
conversations.
Exactly. So what we really want to try and do is be intentional. When you talk about active listening, this is a very big challenge for me. So this is a great example of we can all get better in these issues. I'm passionate about these, and I, especially with family and close people in my life, I'm not as active a listener. You're in the first 2 sentences of a 6-sentence stated paragraph to me, and I'm already responding mentally of what I'm going to say. So one of the things I like to do with active listening is try and use the last sentence that you use, one word of those last sentence, in the first sentence that I give, because it forces me to think through everything that you're saying.
What a great
Such
skill.
a great point. You know, one more thing, your website, I just want people to know the website is chock full of resources, from things for parents to business professionals. Anything there that you want to highlight before we?
And tell them the name of the
Right.
website, because we're going to
Yes.
get cut off here.
Yeah.
So you can go to drake.edu/Ray Center, and you'll find a host of resources there, very similar to what you'll find at Tero International and what they're pushing out with their social media. And we really do want to provide strategies and resources. Ethical leadership, civility, character begins first and foremost in the home. And so we have a lot of resources for families in the home. It also begins very early. Brain research shows us that these types of competencies start to be developed between birth and age 5. So there's a resource there, quite candidly, for parents that are reading to their children from birth to age 5, 20 minutes a day. What type of books would you like to be reading to them? And what are the character competencies? Remember when we were younger, there was always at the end of it the moral of the story. And it's still the intentionality of what does this mean for us in our lives. And then on the workplace side, there's a lot of strategies, just as you're focused on. What can we do to engage to become more efficient? That's what tools are for, to help us become better at what we do. And we're focused on excellence and integrity. And what does an excellent work life look like for us? An example, again, when you talk about incivility, is manifested in stress and our inability to manage, identify, and reduce stress. How would you identify that? And there are resources on our website that talk about just those things.
Wow, what an important skill.
Yes.
Well, I can see it's time for us to wrap up. So thank you for joining us today. If you missed any portion of this show, or if you'd like to share it with others, you'll find the entire program uploaded to Tero's YouTube channel. Join us next Monday morning at 9:03 Central Time, where we're going to explore an invisible tool for guiding the thinking of another person.
Oh, and we also appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can email those to ideas@yourinvisibletooolbox.com. Also, interact with us out on the social media platform of your choice. And if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can subscribe, use the link below, and you'll be alerted as to when future shows will air.
And before we sign off, we'd like to remind you that the program name Your Invisible Toolbox is also the name of a book that Deb and I wrote that will be released later this month, and we'll keep you apprised of where you can get a copy when it's released. Thanks for joining us, and that's a wrap.